Welcome to Americans for Truth Live. I'm Pete LaBarbera, president of Americans for Truth about homosexuality. We are a conservative, pro-family Christian group. We are as committed or more committed to telling the truth, God's truth, about homosexuality, which is a sin movement. We're as committed to telling the truth as the homosexual activist, transgender activist lobby is to their lies. And I'm excited today. We've actually got some breaking news. My cohort in crime here, Mike Keith, is on the mall for the March for Life. Mike, what's your breaking news there in Washington? He just left, so the breaking news. Okay, this is web TV for you, folks. But Mike is on the mall, and we've got some actually big presidential news when he gets back. But today we're going to be talking about, we've got some big stories. We've got a human rights campaign. Terry Bean story. This is an amazing story. A Democratic mega donor, yet another Democratic mega donor, and the founder, a co-founder of the Human Rights Campaign, the world's most powerful homosexual, bisexual, transgender activist, so-called queer lobby group. He has been re-indicted on sex abuse charges involving a terrible episode with a 15-year-old boy in Oregon. I think Terry Bean was about in his 60s, I think 65 at the time. He's close to 70 now, committing sodomy with a 15-year-old boy. This is the co-founder of the Human Rights Campaign. Mike, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay,
Can you hear me now? Mike Heath, give us the news from the March for Life.
Yeah, for some reason the audio isn't working that great. But can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Well, we have down in Washington, D.C. for the first time in history, Donald Trump, a president, appeared at a March for Life and spoke in person. According to first-hand report from Paul Madore, who was there, I was not able to be there, the scene was electric, Peter.
Yeah, let me say that again, Mike, and you get your audio set. So Donald Trump appeared in person at the March for Life. This has never happened before. I think Mike Pence was there, the vice president. And this is amazing. I think Donald Trump is really showing that he has become, even surpassing Ronald Reagan, as the most pro-life president in American history. Mike, is that accurate?
Yeah, I know you can't hear my audio really well, but I'm showing you pictures. We're at the beginning, at the head of the march. We can hardly move.
And you said Paul Madore was there. Paul Madore, great pro-family warrior from Maine. He was there. He heard Trump speak. Do you have Paul? Any access to Paul there?
We haven't found him yet. There's hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people here. We're trying to find him.
Yeah, but I don't think the media will treat that. Well, I think Trump is actually raising the media profile of the March for Life. You know, for years and years, the media gave the worst treatment to the March for Life because to the liberal media, left-wing marches, for example, the feminist march against Trump or, Black Lives Matter or whatever it is, those protests matter a lot. But a pro-life protest involving hundreds of thousands of people, conservative Christians, pro-life Catholics, whoever it is, those rallies don't matter as much. Mike, have you talked to anybody else who saw Trump speak? This is a big deal.
I haven't yet. I think we're nearing where the rally was, but my wife is here with me, Polly. She's another great pro-life warrior. She's got her sign.
Yes,
and she's on the phone with Paul and Susan. We're trying to connect with them. So if we can connect with them, we'll get a first-hand report from Paul.
Okay, well, let's talk what we were also, before I knew this news was coming. I'd like to hear your thoughts. One of the things I find amazing is there is this incredibly vibrant pro-life movement with, hundreds of thousands of young people who are re-energizing the movement. It's so active and so principled, and yet, compare that to the, say, pro-natural marriage movement. Just years ago, that was a huge issue. It was actually helped elect George Bush, Bush 2. I hear a conversation, Paulie, in the background, but you can't. It's incredible the difference between the two. It's so the pro-life movement is got a lot of momentum, and yet the marriage movement sort of died. I think Obama helped to kill it. It's not dead, of course, but Obama really squelched it because he's flipped positions and came out for so-called gay marriage. Mike, we've talked a lot about that, but most of these pro-lifers should be on our team, and yet the pro-marriage movement, which, you know, there was more than 30 states passed amendments that define marriage as between one man and one woman, and yet the 2015 decision on Obergefell neutered that, was devastating to that whole movement. But Mike, can you hear me? I can't hear Mike. Okay, well, oh, here we
Can
Mike,
you hear me?
Mike, yeah,
Yeah.
give me your thoughts on that.
Well, you're going to have to forgive me, Peter, but I take it personally because the Obergefell decision. Now, one of the interesting things here is abortion and marriage were destroyed by Supreme Court opinions. The Supreme Court is only 9 people. I mean, and it was in Obergefell, it was only 1 vote. I don't remember what it was in Roe, but it was just 1 vote that destroyed marriage in America. It was the Obergefell decision, and it came down on my wedding anniversary. And it really disgusts me that the pro-life movement won't make the connection between marriage and abortion. It disgusts me so much that I boycotted the speaking this morning because they included Ben Shapiro, who is pro-homosexual.
Well, let me clarify that, Mike. I don't know. Yeah. I know Ben Shapiro has said that he's for legalized gay marriage, even though he philosophically opposes so-called gay marriage. I think he says he's for the marriage decision, or the right of it. In other words, maybe he wasn't for Obergefell, the decision, but he sort of made an accommodation with that as a libertarian. And I think that's very dangerous, because I guarantee you, and I don't know if we can find the article where he said that, but if we will talk about that next week. But the point is, people who would never compromise, like Ben Shapiro, on the Roe v. Wade, they would never say that they would, we have to make an accommodation with Roe v. Wade, somehow have made accommodations on various aspects of the homosexual issue. And that's what's got to change, folks. We see conservatives all over the place saying they are for gay marriage now. They're trying to make a conservative case for so-called homosexual marriage. And the disconnect is just not there.
And
Mike?
Peter, Peter, it's absurd that on June 26th of every year, we aren't having a march in Washington, D.C. similar to this one. I mean, it needs to start this year. Even
it
if
needs to be bigger. We had one last year. You participated, Americans for Truth. It wasn't a march. We just had a rally in front of the Supreme Court, and it was a very great rally. But you're absolutely right. There should be hundreds of thousands of people marching around the country. If they can't all come to Washington, they should march, because that Obergefell decision basically forced homosexual so-called marriage on the entire nation. You're right. A small number of men and women in black robes. It's preposterous. Just less than 20 years before that, anti-sodomy laws were legal, and the court struck down those. And so we can't allow this judicial tyranny to basically decide for the American people. Remember, there were more than 30 states which had made the move of enacting ballot provisions to protect marriages between one man and one woman. And yet when Obama sort of pressured the court, Obama himself flipped, and he lied about gay marriage himself. And then the Supreme Court in 2015 made that decision, which was very much like the Roe v. Wade decision, forcing this evil idea of people getting married between the same sex, forcing the legalization of that on the entire nation.
Well, Peter, you're going to have to forgive me again, because one of the reasons that I boycotted Shapiro is you pointed out that he was making a play for libertarianism and for the libertarians. And I worked for Ron Paul in 2012. I was his leader in Iowa in the first in the nation primary. And I was surprised to learn when I got on the inside of libertarianism how pro-homosexual it actually is, and how weak Ron Paul's position is on marriage and on homosexuality. I think Ron Paul himself is no great friend to sex outside of marriage, but his policy position on marriage is very weak because it's rooted in states' rights. And
right.
If abortion can be can attract this kind of support at the federal level for federal changes, national changes, then why can't marriage?
Right.
Why can't marriage? Why shouldn't marriage?
I wasn't planning on devoting a lot of the show to it, but we might as well. We're here. Libertarianism, excuse me, has a big problem because they have made gay marriage one of their foundational things now the liberty of two men or two women to get married. And yet the same libertarians, Mike, we see state laws and city laws all across the country. They're banning talk therapy for people for minors and now adults, people who want to get out of the homosexual lifestyle. And I don't see libertarians lifting a finger to stop those state bans, which would basically say the government is going to dictate that you remain in a gay lifestyle. That's kind of what we're talking about here. And where are the libertarians on that?
Well, whoops. Yeah, I muted you. Well, here's the problem. Libertarianism is also characterized by being the movement that has led us into the approval of recreational marijuana. And so you have an ethic, maybe even a morality. It rises to a level of morality, I think, that is so pro-pleasure that it can't sort out necessary distinctions in law and morality at the national level. Right. It reduces profound decisions that influence the longevity of civilization to states' rights or to local level. It's kind of a perversion of the subsidiarity argument that or philosophy that Roman Catholics developed back 100 years ago. But it's very toxic, and
but Mike, isn't the core evil of it? I mean, what's wrong with it is it basically puts man on top of God. I mean, you can't make a conservative moral case for legalized homosexual so-called marriage. They try to say, oh, monogamy, and don't you want to encourage monogamy? I mean, come on. Marriage is the foundation of civilization. I mean, it's families. It guarantees stable families, or it should, and basically it's survival. I mean, one of the problems in the West is that people aren't getting married and they're not having children. They're not having enough children. The West is dying off, which was why Islam is growing, because the Muslims have lots of children. I mean, it's so foundational, and yet it trivializes marriage in so many ways to say, hey, as Obama said, remember Obama was what? Love is love. I mean, talk about a cartoonish, infantile, definition of marriage. Love is love. And that's why libertarians, I had one guy on Twitter, I don't want to give his name right now, but I asked him, well, do you oppose laws banning incest? And he would not say no. In other words, he's so wound up in the I can't dictate morality, I can't dictate people's behavior for the government, that he could not even come out. He could not even come out against laws banning incest. And yet the same libertarians, as I point out, Mike, they are not stepping up to fight politically correct laws which are banning ex-gay change. People who want say a child was molested by somebody like Terry Bean, the co-founder of Human Rights Campaign, who's now been reindicted on the sex abuse charges because he was an old man, sodomizing a teenage boy, a minor teenage boy. Now, let's say you're the parents of that boy, Mike, and you live in my state of Illinois or your state of Maine. I think Maine has one, or North Carolina doesn't, but Maine did, where Mike Heath did his pro-family activism. And you're the parents of a boy who's been abused by an older homosexual man. And you say, I don't want that boy to think he's gay, and I want him to get help because he's been abused. That is illegal, specifically seeking pro-heterosexual talk therapy. That is illegal under these bans that have been enacted in various states. And where are the libertarians fighting that?
Yeah, and I think the reason is because the principle of pursuing pleasure trumps everything else, has come to trump everything else within that movement. It's radically individualistic, especially when it comes to, so it's kind of a form of narcissism. And they need to repent or develop a different nuance to their ideology. There's a lot in libertarianism that's worth considering,
right.
Of course.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, we're libertarian on several issues, but I think you're absolutely right. And I think the movement, I think the danger now for republicanism. Let's be frank, Mike. Trump is a star on pro-life. He's not a star on gay rights. Why? Why? Because the Republican Party is trying to make an accommodation with the homosexual activist agenda. We just saw the phenomenon, Mike, in Florida. In Florida, Governor DeSantis, who Trump helped get elected in Florida, barely won. He came out with an executive order that does not include LGBTQ as a civil right for, non-discrimination provision for state employees. In Ohio, another Republican governor, Governor DeWine, did include LGBTQ in his executive order for state employees in the state of Ohio. That's exactly what the Democratic governors do, right? When they get elected. So we have the Republican Party now being this huge temptation for the Republican Party now to go pro-gay, sort of like the Conservative Party in the UK.
Right. And what's bringing that on is the need for the Republican Party to hold on to power, and the millennial generation trying to make up its mind. I think my sense is the millennial generation is shifting toward family and toward populism and toward the nation state and toward borders and stuff. But it's a laggard, and even on abortion, the millennial generation is pretty pro-life. But on this issue, they really need to take it up and deal with it. And but because they're kind of pulling as they assume power, the millennials, as they move in through their 30s into their 40s, 50s, they are going to continue to draw the parties, especially if they continue to move to the right. They're going to continue to influence pull the Republican Party. Peter, I would cite as evidence to this, the Southern Baptist Convention has pointed out that one of the reasons it is going with this revoice type idea, this conference and all this.
It says pro LGBTQ Christianity, LGBTQ affirming Christianity.
And one of the reasons they pointed out very prominently is to keep the youth in the church. The youth are leaving the Southern Baptist churches, and they feel like they have to do this in order to keep them in the churches. Sorry to make that point so long, but
that's the same rationale. You're right. The same rationale the Republicans are doing. And rather than teach young people, look, morality is not an app. You don't get to chuck it. It's not an app. This is transcendent truth we're talking about here, and that's what we're all about. And hey, Jared, could you pull up? I forgot the verse of the day. It's I think it's Proverbs 14:34. Do you have that? But essentially, it's righteousness exalts a nation, and righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And we want America to remain righteousness, and that righteousness in this country is rooted in biblical truth. It's rooted in Christianity. I just saw Quo Vadis, which is a movie from the 50s, Mike. I saw it on TCM. It's incredible how Christian that movie is. It's just astonishing to see how openly Christian Hollywood was just, 50, 60, 70 years ago versus where it is today with such incredible moral filth that Hollywood has perpetrated. I mean, we can't even talk about some of the stuff that's just regular fare now in Hollywood.
Good point, Peter. And one of the interesting things about Hollywood is we still have the rating system, right? G, PG, R, whatever. To me, it means almost nothing, because the philosophy in modern dramas and movies is narcissism all the time. It's really wicked, and the storylines are boring as all get out. And the Christianity is what created that rating system. It was pressure on Hollywood from Christianity, Roman Catholic and Christian.
Well, there was the Catholic. There was the Catholics, to their credit, had a code for Hollywood that was chucked. I don't know. I think it was maybe in the 60s or 70s. And what's incredible is sin does not stay in its corner. When you say, okay, in the name of tolerance, we're going to start almost encouraging sin, it just grows and grows and grows. And that's what the whole, that's what we're trying to teach people about the homosexual movement. Just basically sexual morality in general. You give a little bit, they take that, and then they take more. It's like indulging your child in bad behavior. And now look where we are. And Mike, we're talking about Hollywood. Jared, if you can get this on the screen, I've got Call Me By Your Name, which was a 2017 movie. Now, this isn't Terrence Bean type sex abuse. I mean, this guy in the movie, it's about a 24-year-old grad student uh, having homosexual sex with a 16-year-old boy they lived in Italy. That was 2017. We're starting to see Hollywood even broach the topic of, basically it is man boy sex. It's not man little boy sex. It's man teenage boy sex. Now that's acceptable in Hollywood. You still there, Mike?
Yeah, I'm here.
Jared's got the trailer up right now. This is Call Me by Your Name. This is last year. And of course, in the movie, the boy seduces the 24-year-old man, the 16-year-old boy, because that's the line that NAMBLA pushes, by the way, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, the notorious pederasty group. They always said, oh, it's the boy who wants it, So now this is Hollywood, and the incremental, the progression of deviance in a culture is fascinating as a culture starts to kick God to the curb, which is pretty much what America is doing. God doesn't matter as much. We're going to decide for ourselves. The Bible says there is a way that seems right to a man, and the end thereof is death. And it just keeps getting worse and worse. And the only way back is for us to return to that old-fashioned biblical ethic, Mike.
That's right. That's right, Peter. And the reason I hesitated in the last little exchange was there was a group of young people who were walking by me, and I wanted to take a camera shot of them because I wanted to make the point there's a lot of youth here at this march. And I've been to the march before, and that's one of the characteristics of the march that I appreciate is the pro-life movement managed over the last 46 years to manage its messaging in such a way that it has drawn young people. We need to learn from that, right? As we continue to think about marriage and what to do next. There's a lot we can learn from how the leadership has managed this issue over the last 4 decades.
But another thing we have to learn is we have to stay principled. And this idea that you cut corners here and you're going to make an accommodation here, and oh no, we're just going to support the gay conservatives against the gay liberals. We're going to call homosexuality-based marriage a quote conservative issue. That's not going to get us anywhere, because all that's doing is trying to provide some sort of libertarian Republican rationale to a perversion movement, to a sin movement. And it's not good for young Republicans, say, or young Democrats, a teenage boy to latch on to a quote gay identity, or any of the other number of aberrant sexual and gender identities out there. That's not a conservative thing. That's not a pro-family thing. And you really can't make that. You can't make that work. It doesn't work. It's fraudulent, and that's why I think there's going to be a huge pushback, and maybe the Republicans will lose hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of members and voters if they go whole hog on this thing of saying, "Hey, no, we are now going to be the pro-gay Republican Party."
Well, Pete, I think we're breaking news today on one of the key points related to the point you just made. Actually, it's evidence that the Republican Party is breaking apart, and that is the fact that Trump decided to show up here personally, right? I mean, at that level, he could have done what Ronald Reagan did and previous presidents did, which is he could have appeared on a jumbotron, and they would have set it up and they would have done everything to accommodate that. But he for some reason, he decided to come to this march personally today. And the reason he came is because I think Donald Trump gets it better than most Republicans. He sees where this country is going. This country is moving in the direction of respect for life, a respect for marriage, a desire for family, a desire for tradition, a desire for reasonable security. That's what the whole border wall argument is about. Reasonable security, the whole immigration argument. Trump gets it. The Republicans still don't get it.
Well, to your point, Mike, I think it's a great point you're making. Remember what he did in the debates. He described a partial birth abortion. I think he referenced that, the worst one. I think it was partial birth. And he did it in a way which all my friends who are pro-life were like, wow, did you just see that? And he hit Hillary Clinton right between the nose on that, because if the Democrats were challenged aggressively by every Republican on their sold out to abortion doctrine, they would go down the tubes. Now, I think the same holds for homosexuality and this incredibly radical transgender agenda. If the Democrats were, if you went out there and started polling, if the conservative, if the Republicans even started polling on, let's see how many Americans support teaching young boys that they can be drag queens as a boy. Teaching girls that they could start taking testosterone as minors, and maybe they could remove their healthy breasts to become like men. Maybe we should teach that in school. What do you think the poll numbers would be? I suspect the poll numbers would be in the 80s or 90% would say, no, that's not something that should be taught in school. That's not something we should be teaching young people. And yet the Republicans don't go there, Mike, because what are they? They're scared. So what do? They do the bare minimum. And the same with much of the conservative movement. We talked about it the other day. They'll focus on a certain outrage, but they don't want to really dwell on, they don't really want to fight this movement anymore, except for Mike Lee. I'll give him that. Mike Lee, remember, took down Kai Feldman's nomination at EEOC. But the Republicans have become AWOL on this issue, and it's only going to hurt them in all elections.
Well, and it's because they're scared of something that they don't need to be scared of, and that's the mainstream media. I mean, every part of the mainstream media is losing audience share every single day. I mean, they all of them, even Fox News, they're all losing market share, and it's all the viewers of the consumers of news media are moving to Facebook, they're moving to the internet, they're moving to trusted sources who they connect with either through YouTube or through Facebook or through the internet as their source of news. And the mainstream media model is dead. You can put a fork in it. It's over. It's over. The new media
I think even like you said, Fox News. One of the reasons Americans for Truth is so politically incorrect, Mike, is we dared to criticize Fox News. I love Fox News. I think Fox News has actually been, without Fox News, a lot of the conservative movement would be in big trouble. Republicans rely on Fox News to get their message out, but where Fox News errs is when it starts going to this thing of, well, we're going to be more libertarian. Well, we're going to put a lot of gay conservatives on air as opposed to traditional, social conservatives. I think that's a business model that's working against their brand, and I hope they get away from that, because I don't think it's going to help them down the road.
Well, Peter, I know we've only got 2 minutes, and you've written a great close for the show, or one sentence close, and I want to make sure you get it in before the bottom of the hour. So if it's okay, I'll turn to the donate page, and once again encourage everyone listening and viewing today to go to that donate page and make an affordable contribution. Surely, folks, you can afford $5, $10. I mean, there's not anybody listening right now who can't afford a $5 contribution. We make it really easy on the website, debit card, credit card, whatever, and go there to americansfortruth.com, americansfortruth.com. We're closing up the first week of the show today's Friday, I guess. We're closing it up today. It's just the first week. We're just getting started. Peter's committed. I'm committed to being here every weekday at 1 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Central. I don't know what it is on the West Coast, but anyway. Come to, and this show is viewed all over the world. It's archived. This sort of teaching, this kind of education, you're not going to get anywhere else, because Peter is one of a kind. There's only one guy on the planet like Peter who's studied this issue, thought about it, prayed about it, comes at it hard from a Christian perspective, and is making a huge difference. You need to give today. Go to donate at americansfortruth.com and make your affordable contribution today.
Okay, Mike, and thank you so much for what you did there at the march and giving us the breaking news. Before I close, Jared, could you pull up that Wikipedia article on Terry Bean? We were going to talk about this today, folks. This is the guy. There he is, co-founder of the Human Rights Campaign, the largest, most powerful homosexual activist, transgender activist group in the world. The co-founder has been re-indicted on a sexual abuse charge involving a 15-year-old boy in Oregon, folks. And this same organization, Human Rights Campaign, is fighting against the rights of minors to pursue pro-heterosexual change therapy. Can you imagine? I mean, if one of Terry Bean's boy victims, wanted to get therapy to embrace a normal heterosexual identity, in certain states it would be illegal to go to a therapist that was avowedly pro-heterosexual, because of the work that Human Rights Campaign does. And we're going to be talking about that Monday. And I'm so excited about the show, folks, after our first week. And we aim to be as dedicated to the truth, more dedicated to defending the truth than the homosexual lobby is to their lies. And always remember, folks, it's your duty as a Christian and an American to defend the truth about homosexuality and all biblical sexual morality, because it's God's truth, not ours. We'll see you Monday.